Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian. So, AI is garbage, right? Yeah, I hope I'm not disappointing anyone with this admittedly red flaming hot take. And yeah, if you want to skip this little rant of mine, there's a chapter select in this video if you want to skip straight to the juicy bit, so have at it. Anyway, if you ask me, AI is fun for shits and giggles. It's a toy to play with when you're bored, but if you use it for any sort of creative endeavor, you're basically admitting to yourself you've hit creative bankruptcy. Now don't get me wrong, I've seen some amazing AI art done by people who've created their own training models and do art pieces bit by bit, refining seat numbers and basically doing collages of their own work as reinterpreted through a machine learning process, and that sort of stuff is the closest thing I've seen to AI actually being used as a legitimate art form. But let's face it, 99% of AI art is garbage. So I would never use AI for any sort of serious creative endeavor, not just because I think it's a creative cop-out, but also because, as we all know, most, if not all, of the AI generators currently available to the public have been trained on stolen assets and copyrighted material from proper artists who have no say in the matter and piss-poor avenues for telling the AI harvesters to leave their shit alone. But as a toy, oh man, does it ever produce some funny shit. If we set aside for a moment our moral and ethical quandaries, of which there are many, and they're all legitimate, as far as shits and giggles go, AI is where it's fucking at. And for that reason, I'm the absolute opposite of proud to present to you the answer to a question no one has asked and no one wanted an answer to. What would happen if we ruined our favorite adventure games using publicly available AI tools? This, my friends, is King's Quest V. It's a celebrated classic, a cornerstone of the genre that is fondly remembered and has stood the test of time, and it can go fuck itself. Why? Well, I already did a whole video about that. You can check that out in the little link up in the corner there or in the video description. Now, I'm not saying King's Quest V deserves to be ruined with AI, but I'm saying it's not a bad place to start. So, what I did was, and I swear I'm honestly embarrassed at how much effort this turned out to be, I took all the backgrounds and sprites from the game and ran them through Wombo's Dream app. Now, Dream is a freemium image-to-image AI generator app that's got a million different training models in different styles, all of which I'm dead positive are trained on stolen media, so fuck you, Wombo. Your name is ridiculous and I'm ashamed to admit I actually paid money for your fucking app. Anyway, what it does is, you feed it an image, and the AI sort of blurs it out a bit and then does its best, air quotes here, to reimagine the image using whatever training data was in the model you picked. For King's Quest V, I used a combination of its cartoon and comic book models to try and keep the spirit of the original alive in wholly bastardized form. But what's a bastardized image without some bastardized audio to go with it? Well, here's where we start taking some frankly absurd liberties with the source material. At first I was just gonna have a stone-faced text-to-speech generator read out the dialogue from the original wholesale, but then I thought, you know, why stop there? Isn't AI supposed to be able to improve our workflow? Again, massive quotation marks around that. So I decided to feed the script of the opening cutscene to ChatGPT and ask it to buff up the dialogue by making it as pretentious and unnecessarily grandiloquent as possible. And you'll notice that the prompt I gave it was, in and of itself, utterly pretentious and unnecessarily grandiloquent. And I'm happy and appalled to say that ChatGPT fucking delivered. Mask of Eternity, eat thine fucking heart outeth. And then, of course, we need the dialogue performed. Seriously, my fingers are starting to hurt from all these air quotations I'm doing. Anyway, I used another freemium AI service called Speechify, which I can happily say I didn't pay for, to read out the King's Quest V dialogue. Now, AI-generated speech is a whole nother can of worms in that it doesn't just steal art from other artists, but in some cases outright steals their voices as well. And I tried my best to steer clear of any recognizable name actors. You notice Speechify does give you the option of having Snoop Dogg or Gwyneth Paltrow read out your shite.
Greetings, traveler. Have you played King's Quest V before, or are you just here to waste my time?
But I do have some semblance of a soul, believe it or not, so, yeah, okay. Anyway, back on track. We've got the graphics, we've got the dialogue, and now we've got the voices down. But what about the music? How can we fuck up the grand orchestral majesty of the game's original score? Well, leave it to fucking Facebook. The Metacorp has, in what I can only assume was some Rosemary's Baby type satanic ritual situation, birthed into existence an unholy monstrosity simply named Music Gen. This is basically an image-to-image AI, but with music instead of pretty pictures. You can upload a piece of music, give it a prompt, and it'll spit out something that in theory should vaguely resemble what you give it, but more than often just turns into something completely different. For instance, here's the original Sierra fanfare as you know and love it. And here's what the Music Gen AI gave me when I told it that this was a piece of music that was a rousing opening fanfare. Okay. Anyway, the trouble with Music Gen isn't so much that it sucks, because, let's face it, we already knew it would. No, the real trouble is, it can only generate a maximum of 15 seconds of audio, regardless of how long your input file is, and they don't loop very well. Which I guess you could argue could also be construed as part of the charm, but regardless, I felt I could use a little bit more. So, enter Udio. Now, where, to me at least, it sounds like Music Gen was trained on some fairly innocuous data that doesn't actively sound like anything out there, at least not if you feed it recordings of MIDI data from the early 90s, the same cannot be said for Udio. This thing was trained on every copyrighted piece of music under the sun, and it doesn't seem particularly concerned with hiding that fact. And while it doesn't allow you to input a piece of your own, as in a music piece, it does allow you to generate up to 30 seconds of instrumental music based on whatever prompt you give it. So here's how Udio interpreted my rousing opening fanfare prompt that was meant to sound like the Sierra logo theme. Right, yeah, well, anyway, between these two audio affronts to human decency, I think we've pretty much covered our bases on the musical front. But lastly, I felt we needed to add a final touch. You know how King's Quest VI introduced us to that glorious top 40 aspirational mom jam Girl in the Tower? Well, let's be honest, if Sierra had had the same idea back in 1990, you can bet your ass King's Quest V would have had a similar theme song. So, I had ChatGPT, that good old workhorse, write up some lyrics about Graham's self-perceived heroic journey where he piddles around aimlessly for 99% of the game until Crispin the bumbling wizard teleports into Deus Ex Machina the whole shebang into the status quo. And then I told Udio to set it to music because, fucking hell, I swear this is true. You can feed that abomination a set of lyrics, give it a prompt of what style you wanted to create the song in, and it will produce it complete with speech-synthesized vocals. And no, I'm not going to play it for you right now. You're just going to have to sit through the video if you want to hear it, or, you know, skip right to the end in case you're lazy. Again, there's chapter select in this video. I don't know if you've noticed. And big thanks to my friend Adrian Edmark, who actually put together this whole Udio thing, because fuck me if I'm going to sit here and listen to 5 different versions of some Girl in the Tower wannabe with AI-generated lyrics and audio, and it's just a big pile of hell no. But anyway, this preamble has definitely gone on long enough, so now let's sit back, relax, take a deep breath, have a glass of wine, or maybe a big shot of gin, and witness the abject horror of how I ruined King's Quest V with AI. Enjoy.
Lo and behold, before your very eyes, behold the grandeur of Sierra Online, the illustrious purveyor of digital dreams, as it proudly unveils its latest marvel to the world. Pray tell, fair traveler of the digital expanse, hath thou traversed the hallowed paths of King's Quest V in days gone by? Ah, what tales it did weave, what adventures it did unfurl in the tapestry of time. Behold, dear wanderers of the realms of imagination, the majestic edifice known as Castle Daventry, a bastion of wonder and enchantment that beckons with its towering spires and whispered secrets of yore.
Lo and behold, what dire fate hath befallen my majestic fortress.
I can expound upon the lamentable circumstances that transpired.
Pray tell, what transgression hath befallen my realm?
Verily, I possess knowledge of the misfortune that hath befallen thy castle. I did witness the whole calamity, indeed.
Thou didst. Speak. What nefarious events unfolded?
'Twas the malevolent and potent sorcerer Mordag who orchestrated this malefic deed. Whilst I was engaged in a visitation with a venerable companion, mine eyes did witness his apparition, materializing from the ethereal void. Fortuitously, he remained oblivious to my presence.
Cease not thy narration. Proceed forthwith.
He conjured forth a tempestuous maelstrom, swirling with increasing velocity around the bastion. With yet another incantation, Mordak compelled the wind to elevate the castle skyward, beyond the ken of mortal sight. 'Twas a spectacle of grandeur, I assure thee.
Why, what impels this wizard Mordak to covet mine castle? What quarrel hath he with mine kin and me?
That, I am unable to discern. I merely know that 'twas Mordak who absconded with thy castle and kin. Perchance, I may extend mine assistance. My employer, a wizard of considerable benevolence, is well acquainted with Mordak. His nomenclature is Crispinifer, although we affectionately address him as Crispin. Alas, there exists a minor impediment. Egats. Pardon. In any event, where was I? The impediment is that Crispin, albeit highly proficient, occasionally succumbs to the frailties of forgetfulness.
I remain dubious. This approach seemeth ill-advised.
Nay, fret not. Crispin is an adept sorcerer, one of unparalleled prowess. His sole foible is an occasional lapse in memory. Ah, but curses! Presently, an elusive item eludes my immediate perception. Verily, I am certain it accompanied my journey hitherto. Eureka! Behold, I have it right here.
What manner of artifact is this?
'Tis my conviction that thou standest at a disadvantage against the likes of Mordak. Forgive my candor, your majesty, but thou art left with no alternative. Thou must accompany me. Crispin, I am certain, shall be of aid to thee.
What manner of substance is this?
Oh, merely remnants of antiquated fairy dust I have been carrying hitherto. It shall facilitate thy aerial traversal. Follow me to the realm of Serenia, where Crispin and I abide. The journey is far too arduous on foot, thou knowest. I believe the fairy dust remains efficacious. Behold, descend hither, follow me.
So be it, I shall embark forthwith.
Alas, it appears the fairy dust hath lost its potency.
Cedric, whence hast thou been? My attempts to summon thee hath gone unheard. But behold, what serendipitous spectacle graces our presence. A tad ungraceful, art thou not? Come into the abode and dry thyself. There is no reason to loiter like a sodden canine. Cedric, proceed inside and pour each of us a piping hot cup of tea.
Certainly and indubitably, I shall execute this task, Crispinifer.
In the kingdom of Daventry, a tale unfolds where brave King Graham's heart is brave and bold. But oh, a darkness looms, a shadow's cast, as Mordak's wicked spell takes hold so fast. Family's gone, his castle's lost, yet Graham sets forth, whatever the cost. But as he wanders through each quest and test, is he the hero, or just a pawn at best, or just a pawn at best? Oh, King Graham, noble and true, lost in a world where dreams come true. But as he fights and struggles on, is he the hero or just a pawn?
You can thank me later, and I'll see you around the Chrono Stream. Bye!